Mucho al padre como figura central en muchas de sus narraciones. Y yo siento que Yagul para mí representa también una especie de figura patriarca, ¿no? Una fuerza que es descomunal en muchos lugares, no en México, porque México tiene varios de esos lugares donde lo prehispánico deja huellas, deja cicatrices en el paisaje, y las mismas cicatrices se vuelven como signos de fuerza en un paisaje. Trabajar con el paisaje como quizá metáfora a otras cosas, quizá como un intento de analizar ese paisaje. También he tenido la mirada de sembrar y cosechar como poeta, ¿no? De, como él dice, cavar con su pluma, ¿no? Y a ver qué sale, a ver si sale un buen poema. Entonces creo que esos lugares te inspiran a que te pones en acción como creador, te pones a trabajar. Te inspiran porque hay una cultura metida ahí entre las piedras, hay restos de una gran cultura, y lo sientes cuando caminas ahí, te das cuenta.
When I wrote a book called North, and I had two meanings dreaming themselves across each other. One was very specific. It was the north of Ireland, north of the border on our island that separates the Republic, the Irish Republic, from the British state of Northern Ireland. So the north was that. It's also Northern Europe. Mm-hmm. The Viking, Germanic, cold, wind-blown rock country is the place of the Stonehenge and the megaliths. Mm-hmm. So it's also the place of the heath of heathenism, the pagan life. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was part of my heritage. And especially when the violence began in Northern Ireland, I used that north as a kind of analogue or image or equivalent of something bleak and bare and in our experience. On the other hand, the South is all that I inherited via my education and my religion. From the South came the Latin culture, the Romance languages, the religion of Christianity, the classics. And so at a certain point I thought, you are actually schematizing things. You are narrowing the scope of your humanity. You are simply being, thematic, small-minded Northern. Everything is available. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think that I have gone further and further south.
Él está narrando historias en formato de poesía, pequeñas historias, pequeños incidentes en su vida que luego se vuelven grandes cosas. Una pequeña historia, una pequeña trama. Y luego empieza a tejer dentro de esto leyendas, sagas irlandesas, mete la historia de Irlanda, mete toda la cuestión religiosa también.
Well, I guess I began in water to some extent, because my first poem in my first book, the poem about beginning, was called Personal Helicon. It's about going into wells. I also wrote a poem called A Drink of Water, where I'm given a drink by this old woman, and she is really meant to be a muse figure. On the other hand, I also began in the earth. My very first poem, my first book, is called Digging. So I thought of myself water and earth early on. And I don't know. There's another poem when I came to almost the age of 50, and I wanted to get free of certain gravities, in the double sense of gravity in English, meaning something heavy and something, the actual scientific pull of it. I had written a lot about Northern Ireland. I had been bound to the social to some extent, feeling answerable. And some part of me rebelled and said, no, I mean, poetry it's not actually a documentary activity. And this new kind of melody was given to me, or new airiness. And I talked about lightening up, and lightening has a double meaning in English of getting less heavy and becoming more bright. So, and then the fire, I guess, followed. I think that poems are obviously completely different in one way from pieces of stone which have been carved. The medium is different. At the same time, the poems are made up things. They are made up to steady, first of all, the maker. The poem exists to appease something unappeased and unappeasable by any other means except this crazy form-seeking poem thing. So the first reason, the raison d'être of an artwork, of a poem, is to put to rest something unresting in the maker. If it has achieved its form, I think something comes to rest around it for the audience. I mean, I believe this is how it works. It's very, very simple. That those who value an art form come to it, receive it, and either believe it or don't, you know. But if they say yes to it, which is really all that you can finally say to good work, yeah. If you say yes, something has been strengthened all around. The thing itself has been believed in. The maker's impulse has found a destination, a continuum of, what, call it faith, call it whatever you want, has been established. And that, I believe, is the good of artwork. It isn't propaganda work, you know. I mean, it can do that, you can. But it's actually, it's the solitary part of the reader and the writer that it fortifies. And when the solitary part is brought into communication, that's real community. About Ireland and Mexico, I believe both nations are the products of romantic artists, really. We have a prehistoric past which is still real to us. In Ireland, the prehistoric landscape means much to the postmodern youth still. We have a national liberation movement which means much to people still, even though they may want to revise it sometimes. And we have, I think, a national culture that was invented by artists. the architecture and the colours and the vegetations and the people, there is a readiness to give extra life to life. My definition of poetry is something that is more than enough, you know? And I feel in Mexico there's a more than enoughness, you know, a readiness to celebrate it.
I want to know how was your trip in the woods, the silence, the noise of the wind.
Well, there was a wind harp. I very much appreciated Jan and Marta giving us the opportunity to go quietly around the site. I think that the actual, first of all, the geological features, you know, just the shape of the land is extraordinary. And the cactuses and everything like that is, without forgetting about history, archaeology, human culture, is very beautiful. But when you have the sense of a civilization, the traces of a civilization there, and then the fact that Jan had taken the images of the cactus, and I saw so vividly how the cactuses had been transformed into the images in the Golden Bough. This was quite wonderful. And then moving around the landscape, the cactuses with the round leaves, they seem to be in the images in this new book. So the place has really been transformed by him. And then, of course, we did hear the wind. And it was like, a harp in the air. Kind of very beautiful. Yeah.
About the image, do you think that the poet and the artist, visual artist, have a similar point of view about the image?
Well, I think that he and I are lucky in that it comes from underneath the surface in both our lives. I just realized today, he just told me that his brother is a farmer in Holland.
Have the relation with the earth.
With the earth, that's right, yeah. But he's also far from, in one sense, he's not a farmer, he's an artist. But the thing about these things is complete trust is what makes it work. To trust the other's work. And we don't need to talk because something is at work between us. But it's not between him and me, it's between the poems and his work, you know. Friendship isn't necessary, although I'm very happy to say I like him. But the real thing is the energy that is generated by the images. But I think it's probably unconscious speaking to unconscious. And he is not illustrating the poems by any means. Every artist needs to generate energy. And I'm very lucky that my work seems to generate some energy for him. But I'm not just flattering him when I say the Golden Bough was the most exciting book I had, you know. And this is exquisite work. But the thing was that it was the Golden Bough was about an archetypal experience, really. It wasn't me. It was Virgil. It wasn't quite Virgil. It was going on underground. And I think that those are the kinds of things where both artists can just submit themselves to the archetype, you know. And he made something wonderful out of it. This is in a sense a subtler and more personal book, I think. And from the point of view of the artwork, it's very highly developed, you know. And the execution and the technical demands are much more strict and finer in this, you know. The paper and the quality of the printing and the subtlety is highly developed. And it's nothing to do with myself. I think it's a wonderful book, you know. Yeah. And the way in which the pages transform each other. It's a thing in itself, you know.
Yeah.